Nobody expected Angelina Jolie to be the one who finally said it. The View had seen heated debates before. The panel had witnessed political arguments, emotional interviews, uncomfortable questions, and celebrity moments that sent viewers straight to social media. But nothing could have prepared the studio for what happened when Angelina Jolie and Meghan Markle sat across from each other. Meghan Markle arrived expecting a conversation about her charitable work, her advocacy efforts, and the causes she had spent years bringing into the public spotlight. Angelina Jolie arrived to discuss humanitarian work and the experiences that had shaped her decades-long commitment to people affected by war, displacement, and poverty. At first, everything appeared perfectly normal. The smiles were there. The applause was there. The hosts were welcoming. Meghan looked composed as she spoke about using her platform to make a difference. Angelina listened quietly, occasionally nodding as the conversation moved from mental health to humanitarian causes. Then Meghan made one comment. She spoke about the difference between genuine advocacy and what she described as simply appearing for publicity. It sounded like a harmless observation. Angelina's expression changed. She turned toward Meghan and asked a question so simple that the entire mood of the studio shifted. "What exactly do you mean by real advocacy?" Meghan tried to explain. Angelina asked another question. Then another. Within minutes, what had started as a discussion about charitable work became a direct examination of Meghan's record, her claims, and the difference between raising awareness and producing measurable results. The hosts quickly realized they were no longer guiding an ordinary celebrity interview. Meghan pushed back. Angelina didn't retreat. And as the tension continued to rise, one question would leave Meghan struggling for an answer while the entire studio watched in silence. What happened next would turn a routine appearance into the most uncomfortable conversation of the day. Before we get into the confrontation that left everyone stunned, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and stay with us until the end, because the final exchange between Angelina Jolie and Meghan Markle would change the entire tone of the conversation. The atmosphere inside the View studio was unusually energetic that morning. Having two major celebrities appearing on the same episode was enough to attract attention. But putting Angelina Jolie and Meghan Markle together created a level of anticipation even the hosts couldn't ignore. Whoopi Goldberg took her usual place alongside Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and Ana Navarro. The audience applauded as Meghan walked onto the stage first, smiling and waving before taking her seat. A few moments later, Angelina entered. The applause grew louder. Whoopi smiled at both women. "We've got quite a conversation for you today. Meghan Markle is here to talk about her foundation and the causes she's been supporting, and Angelina Jolie is here to discuss her humanitarian work and her latest project. Welcome to both of you." "Thank you," Meghan replied warmly. "Thank you for having me," Angelina said. For several minutes, everything remained friendly. Joy asked Meghan about her approach to advocacy and why mental health remains such an important subject for her. Meghan spoke confidently about creating conversations, encouraging people to ask for help, and using her public platform to draw attention to issues that often went ignored. "I think advocacy begins with listening," Meghan said. "People want to feel seen and heard. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is give someone a voice." The hosts nodded. Angelina listened without interrupting. Then Sunny turned toward her. "Angelina, you've been involved in humanitarian work for many years. What does advocacy mean to you?" Angelina paused before answering. "To me, advocacy means showing up consistently, especially when nobody is watching. It's easy to make a statement when everyone is paying attention. The harder part is continuing the work when there are no cameras, no headlines, and no applause." Meghan glanced toward Angelina. The expression on her face was difficult to read. "Absolutely," Meghan said. "I agree completely. Authenticity is everything." Angelina nodded. "I agree," she replied. Neither woman knew it yet, but that single word was about to become the dividing line between them. Because Meghan's next comment about performative advocacy would make Angelina question exactly what she meant. And once Angelina started asking questions, she wouldn't stop. Meghan leaned forward slightly, sensing the conversation moving toward a subject she knew well. "I think people can tell when advocacy is genuine," she said. "There's a difference between actually caring about an issue and simply appearing somewhere because the cameras are there. If you're going to talk about helping people, there has to be substance behind it." The audience remained quiet. Angelina turned toward her. "Can I ask you something?" Meghan looked at her. "Of course." What do you mean by simply appearing somewhere because the cameras are there? Meghan smiled politely. I'm speaking generally. I understand, but I'm curious about the distinction you're making. The distinction is simple, Meghan replied. Real advocacy requires commitment. It isn't something you do for publicity. Angelina nodded slowly. I agree with that. Meghan relaxed slightly. Then Angelina continued. But if we're going to make that distinction, shouldn't we also be willing to explain what real advocacy actually looks like? I think so. Good. Because I've spent a long time working in this area, and I've learned that good intentions aren't enough. You need to be able to show what happened after the cameras left. Meghan's expression tightened. I've always believed in that. Then we're probably closer in agreement than you think. Perhaps. Angelina didn't look away. But I want to understand something. When you say that some people are simply showing up for photo opportunities, are you talking about celebrities generally, or are you referring to specific people? Meghan paused. I don't think it would be appropriate to name anyone. That's fair. Angelina folded her hands. Then let me ask a different question. What standard are you using to determine whether someone's advocacy is genuine? Meghan answered quickly. Impact. Commitment. Whether the work continues over time. Angelina nodded. Exactly. There was a brief silence. How do you measure that? Angelina asked. Meghan looked toward the hosts. Through the work itself. But what work specifically? The question landed differently this time. Meghan's smile disappeared. Angelina remained calm. I'm not attacking you, she said. I'm simply asking because you introduced the distinction. Meghan straightened in her seat. I've done plenty of work. I don't doubt that you've done work, Angelina replied. I'm asking what measurable results came from it. And suddenly, the conversation was no longer general. Meghan took a slow breath before answering. Our work has focused on mental health, women's empowerment, community support, and creating partnerships with organizations that are already doing important work. Angelina nodded. Partnerships can be valuable. What changed because of those partnerships? Meghan paused. We've helped bring attention to issues that don't always receive enough attention. That's important, Angelina said. But attention isn't the same thing as an outcome. Meghan looked directly at her. Sometimes attention is what creates change. Absolutely. But what happened after the attention? The question made the studio noticeably quieter. Meghan shifted in her seat. I don't think humanitarian work can always be reduced to numbers. I'm not reducing it to numbers, Angelina replied. I'm asking for examples. We've supported organizations. Which organizations? Meghan began naming several types of initiatives rather than specific results. Angelina listened carefully. And what did your support allow them to accomplish? Meghan hesitated. Programs were expanded. Conversations were started. How many people benefited? I don't have those figures memorized. Angelina nodded. That's okay. But if you're presenting yourself as an advocate, shouldn't you know what your advocacy actually accomplished? Joy leaned forward. Angelina, I think Meghan's point is that not every impact can be measured immediately. I agree, Angelina said. But some can. Sunny added. There is a difference between visibility and measurable impact. Exactly, Angelina replied. Meghan looked frustrated. I feel like you're holding me to a standard that you don't apply to everyone. I'm holding you to the standard you just described. What does that mean? You said genuine advocacy requires sustained commitment and impact. I'm asking you to demonstrate that impact. Meghan shook her head. This feels less like a conversation and more like an interrogation. Angelina's voice remained calm. It only feels like an interrogation if you're uncomfortable with the questions. The audience reacted with a low murmur. Meghan looked toward Whoopi. I came here to talk about positive work. And we are talking about it, Angelina said. I'm simply asking you to go beyond the headlines. Meghan's jaw tightened. I've done more than you know. Then show me the results. For the first time, Meghan had no immediate answer. Angelina leaned back. That's all I'm asking. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Meghan's eyes narrowed. I don't think it's fair to reduce everything I've done to a list of numbers. I'm not reducing anything, Angelina replied. I'm asking you to explain it. I've explained it. You've described it. The distinction landed immediately. Meghan looked toward Whoopi again, almost as if expecting the conversation to be redirected. Whoopi raised a hand gently. Let's slow this down. But Angelina wasn't raising her voice. She wasn't interrupting. She wasn't appearing angry. That was what made the exchange so uncomfortable. I have nothing against Meghan, Angelina said. I don't know her well enough to have anything against her. But when someone makes a statement about what constitutes authentic advocacy, it's reasonable to ask them to explain their own standard. Meghan shook her head. This is exactly what happens to me. I try to talk about something meaningful, and suddenly I'm being put on trial. You're not on trial, Angelina said. It feels like it. Then perhaps the problem is that you're interpreting questions as attacks. Meghan stared at her. You don't know what I've been through. You're right. I don't. Angelina paused. But I've been through my own scrutiny. I've been followed, criticized, judged, and questioned for decades. I've had my family life examined by millions of people. I understand what public pressure feels like. Then you should understand why this is difficult. I do understand. Angelina's tone softened. But understanding your difficulty doesn't mean I have to agree with every claim you make. The audience remained silent. Meghan leaned forward. You've clearly decided who I am. No, Angelina replied. I've asked you questions about what you've said, and you've judged my answers. That's what a conversation is. Joy attempted to intervene. I think both of you are making valid points. Angelina nodded. Then let's make this simple. She looked directly at Meghan. You said authenticity requires commitment and impact. I agree. So tell me about the impact. Meghan hesitated. For the first time, it was obvious that Angelina was no longer defending herself. She had taken control of the conversation, and everyone in the studio could feel it. Meghan's expression hardened. I have spent years dealing with people questioning my intentions, she said. People who have never met me, never spoken to me, and never understood the decisions I've had to make. Angelina listened. I'm not talking about strangers on social media, Meghan continued. I'm talking about people who decide what kind of person I am before I even open my mouth. Angelina nodded slowly. I understand that. Do you? Yes, because right now it doesn't feel like you do. Angelina remained composed. I understand that you've experienced pressure. I understand that you've experienced criticism. But neither of those things automatically answers the questions we're discussing. Meghan's voice became sharper. I've sacrificed enormously. For what? Meghan stared at her. For my family. For my children. For my sanity. For the life I've tried to build. Angelina paused. Those are real sacrifices. Then why are you dismissing them? I'm not. It sounds like you are. I'm asking a different question. What question? What have you sacrificed for people outside your own life? The studio fell silent. Meghan looked stunned. That's incredibly unfair. Why? Because you don't know everything I've done. Then tell me. I shouldn't have to sit here and prove my worth to you. No, Angelina said. You don't have to prove your worth to me. But if you present yourself publicly as an advocate, people are allowed to ask what that advocacy has accomplished. Meghan's eyes began to water. You have no idea what it feels like to constantly have your intentions questioned. Angelina's expression softened slightly. Maybe not in exactly the same way. Then why are you doing the same thing? Because I'm not questioning whether you're a good person. I'm questioning whether your public claims match the evidence you're willing to provide. Meghan shook her head. This is cruel. I don't think asking for accountability is cruel. You've decided that everything I've done is meaningless. I haven't said that. You don't have to. It's obvious. Angelina leaned forward. If your work matters, then scrutiny shouldn't destroy it. Strong work survives questions. Meghan looked around the studio. Nobody spoke. Angelina continued quietly. You have a platform that could genuinely help people. That's why I think this matters. Meghan wiped beneath one eye. I came here expecting support. Angelina answered softly. Support doesn't always mean agreement. That sentence left Meghan silent. And for several seconds, neither woman said another word. Meghan took a long breath and looked toward the hosts. I don't think I should have to sit here and defend myself against someone who has already made up her mind. Angelina shook her head. I haven't made up my mind. Then why does it feel like everything I say is wrong? Because you're not answering the questions I'm asking. Meghan's expression changed. I have answered you. You've told me that you've worked hard. You've told me you've faced criticism. You've told me your intentions are good. I believe all of that. But when I ask what changed because of your advocacy, you move back to your personal experiences. Because those experiences matter. They do. Then why won't you acknowledge them? I have acknowledged them. Not enough. Angelina paused. I can acknowledge your pain without pretending it makes you an expert on every issue you discuss. The words hit hard. Meghan sat completely still. Joy leaned forward. Maybe we're moving into territory that's becoming too personal. I'm not trying to make it personal, Angelina said. It already is, Meghan replied. Her voice had begun to shake. I came here to talk about helping people. Instead, I'm sitting here being told that my work isn't enough, that my experiences don't count, and that I somehow have to prove that I deserve to speak. Angelina looked at her carefully. That's not what I'm saying. It is exactly what you're saying. No, I'm saying that public advocacy comes with public accountability. Meghan stood. I've had enough. The audience reacted immediately. Whoopi raised her hand. Meghan, please. No. I came here in good faith. Angelina remained seated. And I asked questions in good faith. You don't get to decide what's fair. Neither do you. Meghan grabbed her purse. This has become an attack. Angelina's voice stayed calm. It's only an attack if the questions themselves are unreasonable. Meghan turned toward her. You've been waiting for this. For what? For an opportunity to tear me down. Angelina shook her head. I don't need to tear you down. Meghan stopped. Angelina continued. If your work is as strong as you say it is, you don't need me to validate it. The studio went silent. Meghan looked at Angelina for several seconds. Then she turned toward the exit. But before she could leave, Angelina added one final sentence. Just don't confuse being challenged with being persecuted. Meghan froze. For a moment, it seemed as though she might respond. Instead, she walked away. The audience watched in stunned silence as the confrontation reached a point nobody in the studio had expected. Meghan had almost reached the edge of the stage when she stopped. She turned around slowly. I hope you're happy. Angelina looked at her. Happy about what? About making me look like this. Angelina's expression remained calm. I didn't make you look like anything. You challenged me in front of everyone. You challenged my work first. I never mentioned you. You didn't have to. The studio became completely silent. Meghan looked toward the audience. I came here expecting a conversation. Instead, I was humiliated. Angelina stood slowly. Meghan, I didn't come here to humiliate you. Then what did you come here to do? Have an honest conversation. This wasn't a conversation. Then what would you call it? Meghan didn't answer. Angelina continued. You said real advocacy should be measured by commitment and impact. I agreed with you. I simply asked whether you were willing to apply that standard to yourself. Meghan's eyes filled with frustration. I don't owe you an explanation. You don't owe me one. Angelina paused. But the audience deserves honesty when public claims are being made in their name. Meghan shook her head. You've made your point. Have I? Yes. Then perhaps answer one last question. Whoopi immediately stepped forward. Angelina. But Angelina kept her voice measured. If someone watches you today and wants to support the causes you represent, what concrete result can you point them toward? Meghan stared at her. For several seconds, nothing came out. The silence became almost unbearable. Finally, Meghan said, There are people who have been helped. Then name them. Meghan looked away. Angelina didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply waited. Meghan finally picked up her purse. I'm done. She walked toward the exit. The audience remained frozen. Whoopi looked at Angelina. That was intense. Angelina sat back down. I didn't want it to become this. Joy stared toward the empty space where Meghan had disappeared. But it did. Angelina nodded. Because sometimes the hardest questions aren't the loudest ones. She folded her hands. They're the ones nobody wants to answer. The studio remained silent for another moment. And in that silence, the entire confrontation suddenly felt different. It wasn't about who had spoken louder. It wasn't about who had won. It was about the question that remained hanging in the air after Meghan walked away. When someone claims to be an advocate, should their words be enough, or should the results speak for themselves? The studio remained unusually quiet after Meghan left. For several seconds, none of the hosts seemed to know what to say. The audience was still processing what had happened, while Angelina sat calmly on the couch, her hands folded in front of her. Whoopi finally broke the silence. Well, that was certainly not how I expected this conversation to go. Angelina nodded. Neither did I. Joy looked toward the exit. I think you were incredibly direct. I was. Maybe too direct, Joy added. Angelina considered that for a moment. Possibly. But I wasn't trying to hurt her. Sunny leaned forward. I think there's an important distinction here. Meghan has experienced genuine public pressure, and I don't think anyone should dismiss that. I agree, Angelina said. But you also believe that personal hardship doesn't automatically establish someone's humanitarian credentials. Exactly. Sarah nodded. Those are two separate things. Angelina looked toward the other hosts. Someone can experience enormous hardship and still be questioned about the work they publicly claim to be doing. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Anna added carefully. But Meghan clearly felt that she was being attacked. I understand why she felt that way. Do you regret anything you said? Angelina paused. I regret that the conversation became personal. I don't regret asking the questions. Joy raised an eyebrow. Even the question about measurable results? Especially that question. Why? Because advocacy shouldn't become a performance where the language is more impressive than the outcome. If we're talking about people who genuinely need help, then outcomes matter. Sunny nodded slowly. That's difficult to argue with. Whoopi sighed. But there are also different ways to create change. Absolutely, Angelina replied. Not everything can be measured immediately. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to measure anything. Sarah looked toward Angelina. You knew she was going to walk away? No. You seemed very calm. Angelina smiled faintly. I've learned that raising your voice doesn't make an argument stronger. The audience reacted with quiet applause. Joy looked at her. And you really believe you were defending the integrity of humanitarian work? I do. Angelina glanced toward the empty guest seat. Because when advocacy becomes branding, the people we're supposed to be helping can disappear behind the brand. The hosts exchanged looks. The confrontation was over. But the debate it had created was only beginning. What happened next was almost as striking as the confrontation itself. The studio slowly returned to normal, but the tension remained. Meghan had walked away, Angelina had stayed, and the hosts were left trying to make sense of a conversation that had gone far beyond the discussion they expected to have. For Angelina, the issue was never simply about Meghan. It was about what happens when public advocacy becomes part of a celebrity identity. There is a difference between speaking passionately about an issue and demonstrating what that passion has accomplished. There is also a difference between being personally criticized and being asked to explain claims made publicly. Meghan's supporters could argue that she had been placed under an unfair microscope. They could point to the enormous pressure surrounding her public life and say that nobody should have to justify every charitable effort in front of an audience. But Angelina's argument was equally difficult to dismiss. If someone chooses to speak publicly about advocacy, should questions about that advocacy be considered an attack? Or should accountability simply be part of the responsibility that comes with having a powerful platform? That was the question left hanging over the studio. The confrontation also exposed something deeper. Both women had experienced public scrutiny, but they had developed completely different responses to it. Meghan viewed intense questioning as another example of the hostility she had faced throughout her public life. Angelina viewed questioning as an unavoidable part of public responsibility. Neither woman seemed willing to accept the other's interpretation. And that was what made the exchange so intense. It wasn't simply a disagreement. It was a clash between two completely different ideas of what advocacy should look like. One side emphasized personal experience, visibility, awareness, and creating conversations. The other emphasized measurable results, consistency, accountability, and work that continues long after public attention disappears. In the end, there was no handshake, no apology, and no easy resolution. There was only an uncomfortable question left for everyone watching. When someone says they are making a difference, should we simply believe them? Or should we ask them to show us how? And perhaps that was the real reason the conversation became so difficult to forget. And that is where this extraordinary confrontation came to an end. Meghan Markle walked away believing she had been unfairly challenged. Angelina Jolie remained behind believing that she had simply asked questions that any serious discussion about public advocacy should be able to withstand. Neither woman backed down. Neither completely accepted the other's point of view. But one thing was impossible to deny. The conversation had gone somewhere neither of them expected. What began as a discussion about humanitarian work turned into a debate about credibility, accountability, public pressure, and what it truly means to make a difference. And perhaps the biggest question isn't whether Angelina was too harsh or whether Meghan was too defensive. Perhaps the bigger question is whether anyone who uses a public platform to speak about helping others should be prepared to answer difficult questions about the results of that work. So now we want to hear from you. Was Angelina Jolie too harsh during the confrontation, or was she right to demand specific answers? Did Meghan Markle have every reason to feel attacked? Or did the questions simply go further than she expected? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if this conversation made you think, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more dramatic celebrity stories, unexpected confrontations, and unforgettable moments. Because sometimes the most powerful moment isn't when someone raises their voice. It's when the room goes completely silent and one question remains unanswered.